So we're gonna show how to make homemade sourdough bread. So there's my starter that just came out of the fridge. It's hungry. There's a little bit of hooch on top of it, which is clear liquid. So just kind of stir that in, and I like to basically take approximately 1 tablespoon of starter and transfer it into a new container to be fed. And then we'll just add the food for the starter, which is 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of warm filtered water. And that way, if your ratio is much higher than 1 to 1 to 1 to starter to water to flour, it just allows more food basically for your yeast to go through and really get activated. So your leaven then gets super active and ready to be baked with, basically. So yeah, so basically you want to stir it up, and the texture has to be a little thicker than this. This is a little thin, so I'm gonna add a little more flour. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much the texture. What you're looking for is like this, kind of thick pancake batter type thing. Okay. Kind of clean up the jar and mark it with the level where you want it to, where you started, because what you want is for it to double. So there it is. Okay, so it's next morning. It's been overnight, and you can see the starter has doubled in size, and it's got all bubbly, lots of bubbles inside, and that's what it looks like for me. Tons of bubbles. All right, now next morning we're ready to make our dough. We have a cup and a quarter of filtered water here, and we're gonna use 1 cup of the starter that we refed last night, and it's now all bubbly. Okay, so about this much. The starter, when it's good, it's supposed to float, I guess, but it floats kind of. So then what I do is kind of dissolve it in the water. Now we're gonna add some flour. Okay. All right, so you can see I used my Danish dough whisk to mix up the starter with water, and it's now made this milky substance. So now we're ready to add flour. What I do is I add 4 cups of flour, but I have different flours that I like to add. So I usually add 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and usually about 2 cups of bread flour, but this time I'm gonna add a little less because a 1/4 cup of bread flour will be substituted for rye flour for this extra flavor. So here's my rye flour. Okay, at this point I don't add salt, but you can add salt, you know, if you don't want to go through the next step. But it's up to you. Basically, add salt or don't add salt. If you don't add salt, you'll add it in about an hour. If you do add salt, just add 2 teaspoons of salt right now and mix it up with your Danish dough whisk. And you'll see you don't really need to resemble very good looking dough yet. It's just gonna be shaggy. And you might have to add water, so you kind of have to see and play it by ear, kind of. If it's too dry, add a little more water. Like I feel This is a little dry. It will probably get more hydrated as it sits, but I prefer to start with something a little more hydrated to begin with, so I'm gonna add a little more water. Okay, so it's been about an hour since we mixed our dough, and now we're gonna add some salt. So here I have the dough. You can still kind of, it looks kind of like a little bit dry, but it's already starting to come together and becoming stretchy. So that's good. Here I have some salt and some water. So just 2 teaspoons of salt. And then you just want to kind of squish it around and incorporate it. It's going to be a little bit weird for a second, but it'll come together. So just keep mixing to kind of incorporate this salt all throughout the dough. And it's okay if it's like behaving a little weird and it's got like little pockets and stuff, and it will all come together after it sits for about an hour, and then it'll come together more during your stretch and folds. Okay, so that's basically all you gotta do. And now you just cover it with your shower cap and incubate or let it ferment for about an hour. Okay, so time for stretch and folds. Here's your dough. I like to do either like the coil folds like this or the proper stretch and folds. So coil folds are this way. You can see the dough is very stretchy on the first coil. We missed one of the folds, so this is a fold number 2 actually, so but on the next one I will show regular stretch and folds. Okay, so it's time to do our third set of stretch and folds. So it's been half an hour. Again, you do them every half an hour. So like the normal stretch and fold, like how I normally do them, is I do this, turn it, and then this is a very high hydration dough, so it's sticky. So it doesn't stretch as far towards the end on the fourth stretch and fold compared to the first, for example, so, and that's normal. Yep, that's it. Now we'll just leave it for another half an hour. Again, stretch and fold helps to incorporate all the salt and make sure that everything is fermenting evenly and also develops gluten. Okay, time to do our last stretch and fold. It's number 4. There, every 30 minutes I come in and I do this. See how jiggly this dough is? This means it's a high hydration dough. I added a little bit extra water here. So with the high hydration dough, I prefer to do coil folds. But you can do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Coil folds or stretch and folds, whatever. And you can see that there's like bubbles that appear like underneath the surface. You know, they're kind of, I don't know if they show up on the camera, but you can see the bubbles like right under very top layer, which suggests that there's some good fermentation going on. So it's resembling more like a regular dough. So you want to kind of, at this point, you might add a bit of olive oil and just kind of let it double in size. See, nice little dough ball. So we'll let this rest for some number of hours until it doubles. Okay, so it's the next day now, and we just took out this dough in the Benetton from the fridge, which was in the fridge overnight since 6 p.m. last night, and there's a little bit of rice flour here, so I'm gonna just dust that, and then what I do is something like this. There's already a ton of rice flour here because I put it in the Benetton so that it doesn't stick. So now you want to do your designs. So you want to kind of pre-draw what you're going to do. So I just take like a toothpick or something and draw where I want my wheat stalks to be. I guess I'll just have two. And then you don't cut these. You just cut around them. Do it kind of swiftly. Like confident cuts, but not too deep. Okay, and then on this side, you want to put like a big gash. That's called an expansion score. And I go over it a couple times. And because you want that ear, I even like cut a little bit kind of under. Okay. So that's it. Now you just put it in your Dutch oven. Okay, so this Dutch oven just came out of the oven. Was there for an hour. So it's really hot. Put your bread there, and there's some ice cubes. I put it behind. And this will help the bread to crust properly. Okay, and off it goes into the oven. If you put the sheet, like a baking sheet underneath, it helps with the bottom not getting... Okay, so it's been 25 minutes. And the reason why it's 25 and not 20, because this came out from the fridge, so the dough was cold. If it was room temperature, I would probably do for 20 minutes. But here's what it looks like so far. You got a nice expansion, and it goes back for another 20 minutes. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes. I usually check it to make sure it doesn't get burned. even though the timer is set on 20. This still looks all right to me, so I'm gonna go back. But always check. Sometimes, for whatever reason, it can burn. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes total after the lid came off. And here's our bread. We're going to put it here. Boom. Not as much rice as I would have liked, but you know, looks all right. We'll see in about an hour or two what the crumb looks like. Okay, so it's been 2 hours and we're ready to cut into the bread. It's been cooling. It's really soft. But it didn't rise as much as I would have liked it. But let's see. Actually, it's not too bad. Yeah. Let's do a taste test. So you can see the crumb. And there's an ear. The shoulder should have been a little taller. I think that would have been ideal, but it's very soft. Okay, let's see. Is it tasty? I'm not mad at it. It's good.